I sat down with Jake Claver and asked him all the questions that I really needed the answers to. Stuff like, when does he think XRP's utility is really going to come in? Since he was just at Swell, I asked him about his experience at Swell, what he was seeing on the ground, the conversations he was having. I asked him about ISO this weekend. You're going to want to hear what he had to say about that. Bitcoin ETFs. Man, there is so much here. He taught me so much. It's always a real honor to interview Jake Claver. He's just a wealth of knowledge. He helps manage money for all of these bigger individuals. He's got a lot of really good things to say. I hope you enjoy this interview. If you need help growing in the crypto space, there is a link down in the description for a free 7-day trial to Cryptonairz. There have been so many projects and wins posted in that community in the last 90 days. I can't even count the thousands of a percentage that projects have gone up. It is that insane. Please take a look down in the description. I hope to see you around the community. Come in and join the family. That's what it is in there. We're all sharing information, and that's what the crypto space is about: sharing information, growing, and learning together. I hope you enjoyed this interview. I'll see you. All right, everybody, welcome. I am so fortunate to be sitting down with the man, the myth, the legend, Jake Claver. Once again, Jake, go ahead and please introduce yourselves and a little bit about maybe who you are for the people that don't know you. I know there's a lot of people that are going to be excited because they do know you, but who are you? Who is Jake Claver?
Yeah, it's Jake Claver. I'm the director of Digital Ascension Group. We are a family office that specializes in digital assets and alternative investments. So if you're not familiar with what a family office is, we deal with clients that are 20 to 100 million in assets. Obviously, if people have allocations to digital assets, there's not a whole lot of people here in the US that are estate planners, CPAs, accountants, wealth managers that deal with digital assets just because of the ambiguity and the non-regulation. So we've aggregated all those people under one roof, and we specialize in that for our clients. Along with that, we've got a lot of other ventures, and I'm sure we'll probably get into that today, but that's a main shtick in my background and how I'm able to provide value.
That's really cool, man. So if I was just mega millionaire and I was like, I'm not really sure how to invest in a crypto or where to start, you're the person to talk to. You're the guy that to go to. You have a team dedicated. Can you maybe walk us through what's that when you greet a customer for the first time? What conversations are you having with that client? What are they interested in? I'm really eager to know.
It depends on their background and what they're looking for. We have some clients that are family offices that already exist, and they're looking to make an allocation to digital assets, protect those assets, put them into an estate, protect them, use them to produce income of some kind, custody those assets. And for those families, they often have people that they're already involved with. So they'll have a CPA, they'll have a wealth manager, they've got maybe a CIO, they've got estate planners. And what we do is we just come in and provide expertise to help them facilitate that for digital assets. Again, most of the time they're not very well versed in that. And so we just come in as an advisor in those situations. There are other people that are new to wealth, right? So maybe you didn't grow up wealthy, you've never even heard of a family office, but you want to make sure that your things are in order and you're protected, and you're going to make the generational wealth that we all hope and aspire to have last. And in those circumstances, we can provide a full scope of things. Oftentimes, again, some of these people are later in life. They might have one or two professionals that they've worked with. There might be an attorney or an estate planner or financial advisor. Again, we just plug and play in all those situations and provide the areas of expertise that are needed. The original conversation is pretty bespoke. It's always specific to the client, and depending on where they are, pre-liquidity event or post-liquidity event, it can range wildly.
You've been in the space a while. Would you say their education as far as crypto, when they come to you, do you think that is improving? Do you think people are more knowledgeable than they used to be about digital assets? And are they more open to digital assets now? And do you think more than maybe 5 years ago or 3 years ago?
Yeah, absolutely. In that time frame, the average person that we talk to has some exposure, right? They've already got exposure. They've dipped their foot in the water. Sometimes they want custody. They might have somewhere between 1% and 10% of their portfolio in digital assets, and they're looking for qualified custody. We have the first ever wealth management account with PolySign and standard custody that's insured up to 50 million. A lot of functionality there and ancillary services that we've built around that. So those are often conversations that spur the first meeting. And then there's other situations where people have almost their whole net worth invested in specific assets, and they anticipate a significant rise in those assets. And so they just want to make sure that they're prepared for that liquidity event taking place. And then we've got people, like I said, that have already made their wealth either through business or in digital assets that we provide those ancillary services to. And all of those, I would say within the last year here, there's been a lot more. The conversations I'm having to begin with aren't educating people on crypto or digital assets. They already have the understanding there and the capabilities of things. They're just looking to partner with somebody that can help them walk that path and make sure that they're doing things right.
And protect their family members in case something bad happens to them, and tax liability and all that stuff. You have professionals to help do that. That's really cool, man. You did say the mysterious word there, polysign. So I have to ask you, we did talk about this last time we met, maybe 5-6 months ago. Jack McDonald, he's been out talking a little bit more about polysign. Is there anything maybe that you can share with us that maybe not everybody knows about polysign that now you feel more comfortable sharing?
So the custody rule that's been proposed by the SEC, polysign's really built out their entire business to fit that model. And so what does that look like? There's going to be a lot of people that aren't familiar with what was proposed back in February. What the proposal is, if you're going to earn a yield on your digital assets or use them in some capacity, you're going to have to hold them with a qualified custodian. And even to trade on these exchanges, because of the situations with FTX and Celsius and Voyager, they want to segregate the custody of the assets and the financial trading or products that are built around it. Polysign has an escrow function that's inherent to their platform where they can lock your assets in the wallet, and then they'll issue a trade line onto another platform, say an exchange, or maybe it's delegation to a staking pool or a liquidity pool that allows you to participate without ever risking the asset itself. It's just locked in their custody. And so
That's cool.
I don't think that's anything anybody else is discussing. And I'm very confident that ends up being how this space looks within the next 3 to 6 months here. I think that proposed custody rule will pass. And in order to trade your assets or use them in any capacity to produce income, they're going to have to be held in qualified custody and escrowed for that functionality. Polysign's not the only platform. They are the only one that has inherently built in. There's other solutions providers, Copper Clearloop, that are working with custodians to facilitate that functionality. So they provide the escrow on one side and the trade line on the other for wherever it's going. Yeah, they wouldn't be building these things out if that wasn't how it was going to go.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't really understand. It's not like the average everyday Joe that's going to be sending these markets into this new all-time high. It's going to be these really big institutional clients and these corporations that are going to want these assets to hold as part of their future portfolios and wealth, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. The institutions and the liquidity that they're going to step in with, ETFs and the other financial products. So here's the other piece of this. As everybody wants the tokenization of the stock market or commodities or real estate or all these other wonderful promises of this technology that we believe will happen, who's going to custody that and how's that going to work? What's the functionality look like? This is exactly how it's going to work and look. You're going to hold the representation or the digital ownership, the NFT, with a custody provider, and then be able to leverage it in some capacity, loans against it, use it for staking, all the things that I mentioned before.
I tend to think that the market, we're getting close, but we're still in this very speculative, buy the rumor, sell the news type market. We're getting into this utility market. How far out do you think the real tokenization of stocks, bonds, derivatives, all of that, how far do you think this realistically is in your mind? Is this months or is this still years away?
We're actively working with R3 on a project right now. And I mean, that's the tokenization of an actual financial product, probably 6 months away from implementation with institutions for the POC. And then maybe another year after that to get to scale and then provide all the ancillary things that we would like to do with it. I think the next 12 to 24 months is a realistic time frame for CBDCs to become prevalent and used. A lot of the major economies are already in the pilot or about to launch their CBDC. I know that Ripple said that half the world would be running on CBDCs, or they expected half the world to be running on CBDCs by 2024. We're November here, almost December. So I don't know if they'll make that timeline, But after Swell and meeting with their team there, I can tell you that there are a lot of countries that are making large strides in their progress with CBDCs, and it's on the short-term horizon here. The financial products and markets, I think, will probably be closer to the end of that timeline, next 24 months.
That's yeah, that's what I'm thinking as we get into maybe 2025, 2026, right? Because we're still in the pilot phase, right? And we're not really in the implementation of and wholesale usually comes first before retail because they're going to want that for trade and back and forth and banks and things like that. Walk us through what Swell was like, man. For the people that couldn't be there, I saw you post a lot of really cool stuff. What was like the top moments of Swell, and what was it like to be in that room with all of those amazing people?
Yeah, just super humbled and blessed to be able to have the opportunity to go there and network and be around the people that are innovating in this space. Really, all of it was surreal. I don't view myself as anybody special. Like, I watched your show and a lot of other YouTubers for a long period of time before I put the things together that I did selfishly, and then built all the stuff that I'm trying to provide and help other people with. But probably the after party, the Swellivation, or yeah, the Swellibration. You just get to cut loose a little bit and have some drinks with people and really get to see who they are and have conversations. And it's not so regimented or uptight like it is in a professional setting. I like just candid conversations with people and get to know people and see what they're like, talk about their family, their aspirations, what they're doing, what they're excited about. And there was a lot of that dialogue there at the Swellibration. I got to meet with Medico and then a couple other people that are developing unique products on the XRPL, Bitstamp, Anchorage, Coinbase. There's a lot of other consultants there that are in the space that are arm's length from Ripple or other companies that are helping develop solutions. Yeah, all around, just a fantastic trip. If you haven't ever been to Dubai, I live in Texas, and people say that everything's bigger in Texas. I will attest that everything is bigger in Dubai, for sure.
Oh man, that's awesome. What do you think was your favorite? Yeah, I don't know if how many people are going to end up watching this as far as like who showed up to Swell, but who was your favorite person that you met at Swell? What conversation did you have with that person? Why did it stand out?
I don't know that I could pick a favorite person, but there were a few conversations that definitely stood out. So we got to meet with Joel, who was head of CBDC or on the CBDC team there at Ripple, and go back and forth and ask him some questions about where they were. And that's why I'm saying I don't think CBDCs are too far off. There's a lot of countries that are in the pilot phase that should go live within the next 6 months here, I think, with their CBDC. And I think that'll have pretty significant implications for real world use case of the XRPL and a lot of these other networks that people think will do well and be interoperable. Brad's speech at the end, I anticipated maybe some cool announcement or something more. It was nothing burger, but he touched on some key points. I think a lot of people, and myself included, get wrapped up in the excitement and how fast things seem to be happening. We have announcements almost on a weekly basis now, and then might even get frustrated because their expectations aren't met with price appreciation. And he just reminded everybody multiple times there at the end that you needed to zoom out. We're 3 to 5 years away from, I think he said a bit longer than that, but he mentioned 100 to 1,000x in the liquidity of the crypto market cap as a whole. So we're currently 1.3 trillion. So we're looking at 30 trillion up to 1.3 trillion or quadrillion dollars, thousand trillions.
And I try to explain that to people too, right, on my channel, right, that you got to look at the value of stock market, the bond market, the derivative market, right, how much gold, silver, diamonds, right, all of real estate, right, art, all of this value eventually will get tokenized, but it's not going to be in 2023, and it's probably not going to be in 2024. It's still going to take time. We don't even have yet regulation globally for crypto. We have just hotspots around the world, right? I know you answer this in a bit of a way, but do you still see this as, how can I rephrase this question? Where is your head at as far as when do you think we will see the utility price for XRP and not the speculation price for XRP?
I'm hopeful that Swift starts using it for instant settlement, right? So that's what I'm waiting on. Cross-border payments, that's what they've been screaming for the past 3 years, beating their chest on. And now I think that's done. I don't know when it'll be implemented. Maybe this weekend's supposed to be something for ISO right on the 19th. I don't get too wrapped up in that anymore. There's been a lot of dates like that just didn't pan out for anything. We'll see if this one works out. But yeah, I think that there'll be the catalyst where we see some pretty significant price appreciation and utility for the asset. And do you need utility first or do you need liquidity first? I believe that you need liquidity in the asset for it to be used. And for that to really happen at scale, you're going to need these ETFs to come in and more liquidity to be in the digital asset space, right? So that market cap needs to jump maybe 10x. We need 10 trillion here before we can really provide utility at scale, because until then, you can move just like what ODL is used for right now. There's nascent markets around the world where people don't want to hold the counterparty's currency, and they'll rent the XRP to be able to facilitate those payments and settle. Uphold announced the partnership to be able to facilitate the transaction between XRP and whatever other fiat they want to settle in not too long ago, which was cool. I was glad to see that partnership announced. But yeah, I think we need the ETFs to go first. I think liquidity will pour into this space when the ETFs get announced. And then once we got the liquidity in, I think that they can pull the trigger on actually using it at scale for Swift transactions.
There's so many things here I want to talk to you about, and it's so amazing to speak with somebody with your knowledge level. Real quickly, when we're talking about liquidity, right? We're talking about two questions here. The first one is, did you see the quote unquote fake, not fake BlackRock announcement about the XRP ETF? And now if somebody paid to have that thing filed and they're trying to track down the person now, and the person can be like, what do you think this is a legitimate ETF that BlackRock's filing behind the scenes, or do you think this is somebody playing games?
I'm just going to speak to how difficult it would be to fake this. Okay. So it looks exactly the same as all the other ETFs BlackRock has filed. The gentleman's name that is on it, he's the grantor of the trust. So this is actually just the entity that would be able to facilitate the exchange traded fund. You would have to fund the entity with the XRP, the underlying asset, and then be able to sell the shares. So the grantor has to sign. You have to have two witnesses that also sign that documentation. All of that has to be notarized. The notary has to verify that those individuals are present and are the ones signing the documentation, turn over your ID, all those things. And then the registered agent that they're using in Delaware also has to verify all of that information is correct, and those are the parties that signed it before it's submitted and filed. So
that's a lot.
Yeah,
it's probably then maybe, huh?
It's not just slap it up there and pay $500 and manipulate the market. It would happen a lot more. It has happened once before. I will mention this. So that there was another company where a fake ETF was filed on behalf of Grayscale. And in that situation, Grayscale CEO came out within 24 hours and said that it was fake. And the company that was associated with the token also came out within 24 hours and said it was fake. We've seen neither of those with this ETF for XRP. We have a Bloomberg article where they said they talked to a sponsor at BlackRock after the guy put out that it was real, retracted a statement, and then put out another one that was fake. And then we have nothing from Ripple. I've heard crickets. And you would think that if it was really fake, there's implications for them as well. I know that they're separate from the token. They just utilize the network. I don't know. Seems fishy to me. We'll see what shakes out by the end of the week. For them to approve this round of ETFs, they have till Friday. The SEC has till Friday for this window to approve ETFs. And if they don't approve any or deny any, then it'll be January 14th, I think, is the beginning of the next window.
Yeah, I was watching Bloomberg and some analysts were talking about the 90% chance it's going to happen in 2023. I guess we'll see in a couple of days which it is or which it isn't. So, man, it's so exciting. We're so close. Now, just because there's ETFs doesn't necessarily mean that the demand will be there. We think and we feel probably that the demand will be there. But what are your thoughts on actual demand? Because I think, didn't Ethereum have some futures ETFs come out recently and they were dead, right? And they were trading less than a couple $1 million. And what are your thoughts?
I can tell you just from dealing with the high net worth individuals that I do, a lot of them are still apprehensive to even step into this space until it's mature and there's liquidity and markets are more stable. They are not going to hold the assets themselves. They would much rather get into an ETF or another type of traditional financial vehicle that would work with whoever they were using as their broker or their fiduciary or their custody provider that they're already working with, right? So there's all these investment banks that want to launch this here in the US. It's a spot ETF. It's not the futures, right? And yeah, I anticipate, and especially BlackRock, like they've got, what is it? They were up to 9 trillion. I think they're back down to 7.5 trillion under management. But a ton of money over here. It could be 5% of their portfolio, and that's huge. There's huge implications for this space with just that amount of liquidity. We would double or triple.
So it just feels legend. Where do you think, so to fund an ETF, obviously they're going to need to buy the asset, right? Does that happen obviously with BlackRock? It's probably Coinbase, right? Is that the Aladdin platform that they're using, or do they buy it from Ripple? Where do you think the XRP would come from that they would use to fund this ETF if in fact it turns out to be all legit and approved?
Great question. I don't have any inside information that I can share with you on one way or the other. To your point, yeah, they would have to get it from somewhere, and it would be interesting to see who has that amount of XRP that would be willing to turn it over to them, or if they already have it, right? Just, we'll have to see, and they don't have to disclose that. They just got to fund it. And there's other people. So we have some algorithmic traders that we partner with that can execute buy orders that are large for people that won't move the market. So a lot of people think if institutions came in a meaningful way, and I agree with them, if it was all at once, you're going to see a move in the market. But if they're able to trickle in and get positions before things happen, which is how the big boys play, you would use an algorithmic trader. And with that, you'd be able to trade within a range and get a valuated average over a time frame. So let's say you wanted to come in with $50 million and you wanted to buy Bitcoin. You don't want to throw one big whack of 50 million at Bitcoin because you're going to have slippage and you're going to lose out on things. So you give it to an algorithmic trader and they'll filter you in over a couple weeks, and they've got a band that they trade within, and they're going to get you the best price over those 2 weeks. So that's how I think a lot of these large institutions have already taken positions and likely have these assets on their balance sheet.
Wow. I was just trying to take a look at the AMM amendment for the XRPL. We're up to 13 yays right now. What are your thoughts on AMMs? And personally, I think we need AMMs also to help out the XRP Ledger, Liquidity, and people can also use them to make passive income and use their XRP for something else other than just holding it. What is your master level thought process on AMMs, and when do you think they'll actually be, when will we have consensus to bring them in?
Yeah, a lot to unwrap there. So I'll touch on 3 things. 1, how you make money with an AMM. 2, the custody that I think will be required for that. And then lastly, just a change in my perspective. So to your question, I think there'll be probably another week or 2 before we're at the threshold where we've got 80% consensus, and then you got to wait 2 weeks there before they're implemented. So I think we're looking mid-December before we've got AMMs live and you can participate. The custody component of that. So again, what I stated before, if we have the custody rule passed in that time frame, you're going to have to hold your assets with a qualified custodian and to participate in the way that I think this is going to be structured. Now, there may be a caveat to that. The way that the AMM is written, it might have an escrow feature that's built into that allows you to utilize a cold wallet. You can escrow it and delegate your liquidity. I don't know. Currently, the only way that I know how to do that is, again, being held at a qualified custodian. So our clients should have, if that's the case, first dibs on the AMMs when they go live and have the capability to be able to earn on their XRP before other people, which is cool. And then separate of that, my perspective's changed a little bit. So there was a lot of people that postured that you would have to put your XRP into the liquidity pool and potentially have impermanent loss, especially if you funded both sides. So it'd be a liquidity pool where one side was XRP and the other side was another asset, whatever's trading against XRP.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's how it's going to work. I think that Arthur Brito and David Schwartz are extremely intelligent, and they've figured this out to work in a different way. So hypothesis here, we'll see how it works when it's all said and done. But I believe that you're going to be able to escrow your XRP in your wallet at the qualified custodian, use that line of credit or delegated line of credit for the liquidity over to the liquidity pool, and that'll be represented in LP tokens. And with that, I think there's going to be 3 ways that you earn interest on this. In my mind, it would make sense that they would want you to lock it for whatever period, similar to a CD. So you're committing for this time frame you're going to lock this much liquidity into this liquidity pool so we can assure that we're going to have the liquidity to facilitate these trades. So maybe you get a base level of interest for that. Next up, you've got the arbitrage in the market, right? So with all the other automated market makers that have existed, and I think we may have even touched on this last time, people will bid for their opportunity to arbitrage the market, whatever is being traded. And to do that, they'll have to bid in LP tokens, and they get a 24-hour period. And if somebody wants to take that from them, they've got to have a higher bid in LP tokens than them. And when those LP tokens are put back into the pool from the bid, they get burnt. So supply and demand, the price of your LP tokens that are still in the pool go up in value. And then the last piece is what I've put together since the custody rule has come into play. I don't think that you'll have to delegate to just XRP specific pools. So for me, I've always thought, all right, if XRP appreciates first, then I would be able to sell some and then buy the other assets that I think might have a higher ROI long term. But if I'm able to just delegate my liquidity to liquidity pools between, let's say, HBAR and Casper, I think both of those do really well over the next decade. I think a lot of things will be built on those networks and likely have some appreciation for the token involved with that. And so then you get the upside on both of those tokens. You have exposure to both of them in the liquidity pool. So now you've got whatever the base level interest is for the time frame that you delegated. You get the arbitrage for people trading that market, and you have exposure to whatever assets are in that pool for their appreciation. So with all that together, I think that the interest that might be accrued on some of these liquidity pools, if you're picking the right ones, it's going to be substantial.
Sounds like we need to make a liquidity, an AMM provider, and just because it sounds like you can make money in 10 different ways here, and you can still hold on to your XRPs. It's the best of every single universe all at one time, it feels like.
Like I said, David Schwartz and Arthur Brito seem pretty smart to me.
Probably some of the smartest people in the industry. Is the founder of HBAR, is it Bird or Bard? I can't.
Bird, yeah.
That guy is really smart too. But we're thankful to have him. I wanted to ask you this, and I skipped it on my thing, but when you were at Swell and you were talking with other leaders that are building in the XRP space, what was the coolest kind of use case, right? Because we saw this partnership with HBAR and Fubon Bank where they're doing tokenization and they're doing HELOCs. That's really fascinating, right? Because a process that used to take, or still does take, weeks, if not months, can happen in seconds, where that's not only great, amazing for the customer, but now the bank can actually do more business and loan more money, create more value into the economy, grow the economy. Was there any other use cases that really stood out to you? Whoa, that's really cool, man. That's cutting edge.
So that one was prominent. There's a lot of people that are looking to tokenize real estate, and I think it's going to be done a little bit different than a lot of people might think in the short term here. I think that there'll be securities tokens that are issued against the LLCs that own the underlying asset, and you can facilitate things that way until there's actual legal clarity around NFTs and the ownership and the implications of holding those and what all that entails. So I think we're probably a couple years out on what that looks like. Honestly, they really harped on the boring pieces of this while we were there, which I'd love to tell you that somebody had tokenized Airbnb, but we're really not there yet. You really have to have the fundamentals in place before you can scale the financial products and all of the wonderful things that people want to have around this, right? Like I want collateralized lending. There's just a lot of things. So the two main components that they discussed there as well were, one, custody, Medico, the acquisition of that company. The gentleman that spoke, that was the president or CEO of that company, was very well spoken, big vision. They want to be the custodian that provides the software that basically custodies all tokenized assets long term. And they might get it. They're acquired by Ripple and they're integrated with all the banks. But second of custody, and you got to have KYML, OFAC, BIS, all of the other things for identity. And so that was really what I saw some of the other really good products there were around, was the identity space and bringing people's identity on chain so that they can participate in a tokenomic. Until you have custody figured out at scale with all the institutions and integrated, and the identity component. And Bob Way actually said something at XRP Vegas. I've mentioned this on a few other interviews, but I haven't seen anybody else that caught this. He said that the XRPL is the best blockchain technology for identity. And he listed off a few other things with that. I think it was transactions and costs and some other components. But that really stuck out to me because I'd never heard anybody else say that. And then when I was at CoinAlts not too long ago, Brad and Jack gave a keynote, and I got to ask Brad some questions. And anyway, he mentioned that when he started at Ripple, they were working on 3 projects: Codius, Global ID, and XRapid, or the payment side for banks and international payments. And he told them, I came from Yahoo, and you don't want the peanut butter manifesto where you're spread too thin and you're not focused on one thing, you don't do anything well. We need to hone in on this one, and then we can come back to those other ones later on. But it was interesting to me because I'd never heard anybody else say that it was Ripple that was working on Global ID. I only knew that Greg Kidd was a backer for Global ID, which makes sense. He was like the 4th employee at Ripple or something. But anyway, so identity and custody are like the bedrock of what's going to allow this to scale. And I know people want some sexy, cool products being developed, but until those things are in place, we really can't do all those other fun things.
Man, you are just a wealth of knowledge. I wanted to ask you about, I watched Brad speak at DC FinTech Week. I watched him at Swell. And when he was talking about Gary Gensler and the SEC, it sounded like they're still not decided on a figure, right? They're still not there yet on as far as a settlement goes and what that looks like. And it still doesn't feel like Gary Gensler himself cares at all about pushing crypto forward in the United States. So where do you stand on this lawsuit with Brad and Chris and the settlement? And then where do you stand with Gensler?
The judge came out with the schedule the other day, right? And so all things considered, worst case, April is the end of this deal, which we've thought for a long time. But there's in the considerations phase and going back and forth for basically like figuring out what people owe. I think there's a 45-day period, and then the other side gets a 30-day period, and then there's another 15-day period where they can go back and forth and have the discussion on it for like discovery on this side of things. And maybe we've got something within that scope of time where they just decide, hey, look, we've already drugged this out long enough. Maybe I can tell you the rest of the world's not going to wait. After being at Swell, they're not waiting on the U.S. anymore. They've got regulation in place, and they're looking to move. Dubai especially already has regulatory clarity for XRP to be used in transactions at scale to facilitate payments there. They're not slowing down, and they are pushing for fintech companies to come there. They're providing all the resources, all the to incentives, no taxes. Like, they're like, come on, come to Dubai, the fintech capital of the world, or Web3 capital of the world. AI, they're very progressive over there. It's sad for me, just being a U.S. resident, that we're not being as progressive as we were with the internet on this technology. But at the same time, I can understand because we're the incumbent. If this gets adopted at scale, it displaces the dollar.
Yeah.
And so I've benefited from the dollar's hegemony my entire life.
Yeah.
I'd be sad to see it go, just like anybody else here in the U.S. would. But I think the rest of the world has been done a disservice with that. And I think that a lot of other economies will prosper when this transaction takes place, or this transition takes place. So I have to see April. I know both of the lawyers came out, John Deaton and Jeremy Hogan, and both said around 20 million or less would be a big win for Ripple in arbitration. But really, there's what damages were caused. And you can't go after damages outside the country. Like Ripple, I don't know what damages Ripple caused. The damages that were caused were by suing Ripple.
That was the mental damage that caused all of us, right? That
emotional damage.
I have aged 30 years in 3 years because of all this. So I feel damaged. We need some kind of victory. I think we're going to get it, but
see if the DS ends up owing us. I don't know. We've got the case where Deaton filed that on behalf of like 70 holders against the S. I have to see what shakes out. I have a weird opinion on Gensler. I'll share it here. I don't think he's a bad guy. I think that he's in between a rock and a hard place. The last SEC chair, just on his way out the door, threw this lawsuit out here and said, hey, it's yours. And maybe the U.S. needed more time to get things in place so that they could hang with the rest of the world. And that's what this whole thing was about, right? You don't go, he taught all the classes at MIT. I've seen him speak. He knows what's going on. You don't just pivot like this on the drop of a whim. There's either money involved, which I don't think so. I think that it's in the best interest of the US to have actually had this lawsuit for the time period that we did. I think that it's probably even in the best interest of Ethereum that the lawsuit lasted as long as it did, because we've been able to develop these side chains that'll now allow for interoperability between the EVM and the XRPL. We've got hooks, smart contracts. We didn't have that in 2020.
You brought up Ethereum, and I got to ask you, right? I don't know if you've been following this Steven Narioff thread, and that within 48 hours, he's supposed to drop this NFT 3-hour conversation. It sounds like with Vitalik about the ICO and maybe some other stuff. What do you think is coming? Are you tracking that?
Yeah, I've been following Steve for a while.
What do you think is about to drop, man?
He's got the receipts. He's got the map. He's got all the stuff. It's going to implicate a lot of people in a poor light, based on my understanding. We'll see what he puts out. But you're not going to make this much noise if you didn't really have the goods. And he's the guy. Everything that he has put out seems corroborated by other people. And I think it's going to have a very significant impact on the Ethereum Foundation, the people affiliated with it, Joseph Lubin, Vitalik, the SEC chairs, Hinman, Jay, Gasparino and him had a conversation, and Gasparino showed his ass. So I don't know. I don't know who all is involved. We'll have to see what the receipts say, but I think that it's going to reflect very poorly on whatever parties are disclosed. And there's possible, maybe the SEC is going to have to turn around and sue Ethereum and that foundation. What does that do to Ethereum's network? And that was my point with the EVM sidechain.
Yeah.
All those people need a place to go. Pond was another speaker at Swell. Weird.
That is
Why
weird.
would Polygon be there at a Ripple conference? They didn't really get into interoperability between Polygon and the XRPL. They really harped on his story and entrepreneurship, and he gave some pretty good gems on what to do and where he would like to be and position Polygon in the long term. And he has a similar outlook to Ripple. He's like, dent in the universe or we go away type deal. Yeah. And so he wants to be in the top 3-4 tokens long term with Matic. So we'll see how it shakes out. But yeah, just a lot of, I think there's going to be some pretty serious implications for whatever Steve puts out within the next 48 hours here.
You sound so professional. I'm like, get him, Steve. Get him. You know, it was like Joseph Lubin and Vitalik. They both targeted Brad. They both targeted Ripple. They said so many just outlandish, negative, like our community was the scam community. Our community was doing things wrong, when in fact, it does look like that they were the ones that were up to maybe some no goodness. And I don't know if it's like vindication or if it's, I'm just tired of these guys trying to just take shots at us, but I'm waiting for the actual goods. And I want to see, because the SEC, because Bill Hinman, right, the thought thing, the money trail is Simpson Thatcher, the 15 million, the Ethereum Foundation, like that's all legitimate, right? So why didn't the SEC ever look into that? Or why didn't the Department of Justice or the FBI or anybody? And are they going to now if Steven Narioff drops this big bomb on the Ethereum ecosystem?
How did they let FTX and Celsius and Voyager happen? And they were suing Ripple the whole time. Look, yeah. I know that it's been a long time for people. And you went through this maybe you were around for the last bull run in 20 and 21, maybe you weren't. In crypto, you have euphoric highs and horrible lows, and your portfolio's down 90% if you held. Look, I think we're coming to the end of that. And I think in order for the institutions to step in and have justification for the regulation and everything that needed to be put in place, you needed some, I don't want to say scapegoats, but actual things to happen for enforcement to be brought in here. Because the space it's $1 trillion market cap, but in the scheme of things, it's a gnat on an elephant's ass.
Yeah.
Okay. Like gold is an $11 trillion market cap. Stock market is $600 trillion, which still isn't regulated. Asterisk is quite.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that they needed these catalysts. Did Gary help orchestrate that and bring things to light? And did people lose money? Absolutely, which is horrible. But that also comes with investing.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not willing to risk it, then you're not going to get the return, and it's always a risk reward. Crypto is extremely volatile. If you're looking for sustainable returns, you probably should just have your money in a savings account where you're earning 5% now.
The bond market, which maybe not
Well,
safe now that it used to be, right?
I don't know about bonds or treasuries either. Gold and silver seem to be pretty solid.
Do you think gold would be revalued? Everyone thinks gold's going to be revalued and it's going to be like 10x. Do you think it'll be revalued 2x? 3x?
Again, I'm just going to give you some data points. On the Fed's balance sheet, gold is still reflected at $42 an ounce. Pretty odd. Hasn't moved since like 1976, something like that. And we have the gold. It's not the gold that people think we have, but we do have the gold. And I think that we will utilize that along with oil and maybe some other commodities, maybe some digital assets to shore up and back our currency. Because that's the only way out of this deal. You're going to have collateral. People don't trust the system anymore. And it obviously isn't working. The inflation, I'm seeing video after video of people having to come apart because their grocery bills doubled and so's their rent, and now they can't afford anything. They've got 3 jobs. Like, they're going to collapse the middle class here in the U.S. if this goes much further.
It does feel like it, man.
Anyway, with all of that, it's extremely volatile. And if you're not willing to risk things, then you're probably not going to get the reward either. But I didn't answer your question. I think that there'll be some type of revaluation. The astronomical numbers that people put out there at $50,000 an ounce on gold. And let's talk to this. Most revaluations happen in a 3-prong approach. They'll have 3 steps to it. So maybe we do get to $50,000 gold at some point as we phase out the old currency and it's 50,000 in the old currency. I don't know what the exchange rate, if we issued a new CBDC and maybe you exchange $10 for one CBDC. I know there's a lot of people out there that hold Dong and Zim and Dinar and these other currencies. If they move to a digital one, and this is just my thought, I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but I'm going to say it anyway. They're not going to give you a 1,000x return on a piece of paper that you're holding. I'm sorry. There might be a situation where you can exchange 1,000 of those for one of the new ones.
Yeah.
That's likely the scenario. That's how things have worked in the past. I hope I'm wrong. I hope everybody makes a ton of money that's holding those currencies. But that's my position on it. I think that there'll be some type of exchange for the old currency to the new one, and there'll be an exchange rate, and it'll be significant. And that'll probably happen here in the US as well. You'll have fiat dollars that people are used to using. You might have money in your bank account that you can swap over to the new system for the CBDC. And maybe they give you some extra ones. Maybe it's a 1-to-1 or maybe it's a 10-to-1. I don't know what the exchange rate is going to be, but if the gold is revalued, I think it might reflect $50,000 in the old currency. I don't think it'll be 50 grand in the new one.
I never even looked at it that way. You definitely opened my eyes to revaluation and CBDC. I'd never thought about how maybe a dollar CBDC could be like, hey, here you have a $10 bill in your pocket. That's actually equals one US CBDC now. That's an interesting thought. And there's something's going to break somewhere. And you're just wondering how far can you keep kicking
the can.
Tough to say, man. Keep kicking this can down the road, man. That's a tongue twister. Before it all falls apart, man. Like it feels like we're getting close, but then it just.
Wow, we've been getting close for 20 years. But yeah, I don't think it will be very far from now. Where, like I said, they made it seem like the CBDCs are not too far into the future, and there's likely going to be an exchange rate. Would be my guess.
Man, we're approaching an hour, and I still have a few things I want to ask you. I know your time is very valuable. Let me just ask you maybe 1 or 2 more things, and then I'll let you go. Besides your XRP and your AMMs, what cryptos are you hot on? What are you talking to your clients and your customers about other than maybe your AI tokens? Are you talking about crypto and AI game, like AI? What's big around your family office?
Yes, AI, Web3, tech startups, tech companies. I like private equity. We look at that a lot. We do raises for that in the mastermind, and with our clients, we can get them allocations through our brokers. And it just depends on what you want to get into. A lot of the stuff we deal with is more traditional. So we help people diversify to hedge against the volatility in crypto. A lot of people that might have, like I talked about before, you could have a 90% drawdown in your portfolio, which is not a very good hedge against maintaining your wealth. And that's really what the family office is about in the long term, is wealth preservation over wealth gain. You always want to make sure that you're maintaining whatever the inflationary rate is or beating that. But wealth preservation is very different than how you're going to acquire your wealth. So
do you want to tell people about your mastermind group? I know maybe, do you have to have 20 to 100 million to be in this mastermind group, or can you be somebody that's only made a few $1 million in crypto, but we're up and coming, how does one get in touch with you, or how does one join this mastermind group?
Yeah, so Beyond Broke Mastermind, I started a consulting company a couple years ago where we would help people strategically exit from their business. We come in and work with them so that they could sell for more when they look to sell it. And we eventually parlayed that into a mastermind group. And the majority of the individuals there, I would say, are in the boat that you're talking about. They're up and coming. They have large allocations to digital assets in some regard. Maybe they're an entrepreneur and they want insights on how to protect their wealth after they acquire it, or what they can do to scale their business and make more money. Obviously, we offer health insurance through that group, which is not anything else I've ever seen any other mastermind group do the private investments through that group. So give them opportunities that you're not going to get, even if you're not accredited. We've got ways that people can participate. All you got to do is reach out. We can have that conversation. But the couple different websites. So just if you want to reach out to the family office and have a consult, check things out, talk to me or our team. It's going to be digitalfamilyoffice.io. And then if you want to check out the mastermind, it's mastermind.com. Once you sign up there, you'll get the link to the Discord, and we have multiple calls a week on there, AMA style. Just talk about everything that's coming up, specific topics around wealth management, preservation, private investments. And you can ask, it's an open forum. So all the people there ask different questions. We've got a catalog of about almost a year's worth of content at this point that's specific to that group. So lots of stuff to chew on if you get the time.
I'll make sure to include links below in this video to all of these places that you just mentioned. That way somebody doesn't have to Google search it and maybe find the wrong thing. I'll have your Twitter. I'll have all of these links. That way it's easier to find you if they
Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
What for the people that might not have, what is, do you want to talk about the cost of the group, or should we just
acquire? Yeah, so we have 4 different levels. There's a social membership. I always like entry level stuff. I never know if I don't want to dump, and I've spent thousands of dollars on groups that I didn't end up learning anything from and getting any value from, and then I'm out the money. So what we do is just $25 a month, so you can get your feet wet. We give you a lot of resources. You can participate in the events and the town halls. These costs likely will increase over time, but we try to take care of the people that take care of us. And if you're going to come in early, we lock you in at that rate, and that's where you stay. Next level up from there is Carbon One, and Carbon One has a couple more features to it. You get access to all those channels and the other resources around financial education and business, as well as the opportunity to participate in the raises with everybody else there. The level above that is more geared toward entrepreneurs that are running a business that's 7 to 8 figures and are looking to exit within the next 2 to 5 years. Foster the group there. And then the highest level is pretty much an extension of the family office. You get all of the same services we have there, along with all of the benefits of the mastermind as well.
Beautiful. Beforehand, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you're dying to just talk about or mention before we end?
We've really got into it all. If somebody's interested in qualified custody with the insurance, would love to have a conversation with you. Let me talk about the minimums there and some of the requirements. So the minimum is $100,000 in digital assets that PolySign and Standard Custody will hold. So that's an aggregate total. It could be Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Avalanche, Solana, Matic, Chainlink, and then there's a bunch of DeFi protocols that they hold. Uni's another one. And if anybody's interested, just reach out via Twitter or my email on the site, and I'm happy to share the list with you. And then the other stipulation for those is that the assets are held within an LLC or trust.
All right, man. Jake, I really appreciate it. We talked about so many amazing things. I know that if somebody watches this whole video, their knowledge about crypto and what's happening around XRP and the SEC and their knowledge is going to explode. So thank you for your time. It's an honor and always a privilege to speak with someone of your caliber in the space. Keep doing what you're doing. You're helping people. You're helping people make sure that their plans are for the future. And I thank you for that. And we appreciate your time, man. And I hope you have a blessed day. And I'll see you maybe in another, maybe 2 or 3 months, and we can do this again.
Would love it, brother. Thank you for having me as always. And same to you. Keep doing what you're doing. I think people love the channel, and the information that you provide is invaluable. And I'm excited to see where we go before the end of the year here.
Me too, man. It's an honor. Cheers, bro. Thank you.
See you.
Bye.